Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Drak Reviews, where we take on probably the most controversial title of 2017. Yes, this is going to be a review of Star Wars Battlefront 2 EA Edition. And so let's just go ahead and go right into it, because I tend to ramble, and we're going to stop all of that so that we don't have too long a video. Starting with the story. So, believe it or not, Star Wars Battlefront 2 came with a campaign, and it's officially canon. So you know that Disney and EA and Star Wars and all of them are very happy with it. Well, it's got a 50-50 kind of feel. So let me go ahead and sum things up as best you can. You play the character Iden Versio of Inferno Squadron, basically Imperial Covert Ops, where she actually engages in a campaign to rid us all of the rebel scum. And this takes place during the events and actually goes past the events of Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. So you are able to see what Iden Versio can do on her own, as well as be able to see her take part in the Battle of Endor, whereat she notices the destruction of the second Death Star, and her boss gets murdered. And that actually sets her on a crash course where not only does she begin to question her own beliefs in the mighty empire that she has worked so hard for, but then she also has her crew starts to begin to question not only that, but also whether or not the rebels are truly evil. And the entire campaign eventually goes all the way into, I'm guessing, the events just before The Force Awakens. And I'm not going to spoil that too much, just because I do know that there are some people who do want to actually go through this and do want to be able to see what the canonicity of this is. So that's pretty much the story summation I am going to give. My thoughts on it: it is problematic at best, if not idiotic at absolute worst. Basically the problems that I have base around the main character, Iden Versio. I think she starts off really well, but then about the third or the fourth mission is where they decide to, and I'm going to try and not spoil this as much. Basically, she makes some decisions and eventually joins the Rebel Alliance. You can eventually find this out online, so I think you'll be okay with it. Basically, to have a really weird way of crossing Imperial combat with Rebel combat. And it doesn't succeed very well, because when you look at Iden Versio as a character, there's a lot of problems here. She's Imperial Covert Ops, which means not only is she the best of the best of the best, but you also have to think in this kind of a scenario, in this kind of an environment, she is the loyalist of the loyalist of the loyal. And so her turning to the Rebel Alliance is dumb on her part. I tend to agree with Angry Joe. It's not exactly the best idea for her to do that. And it also doesn't speak well, in my opinion, of the Rebel Alliance, the fact that they brought her in. They can't trust her. And instead, she becomes probably a very versatile character within the Rebel Alliance. I'm kind of surprised we've never heard of her before up until this point. I'm not necessarily going to fault the actress's performance of it. I don't really think any performance is bad, per se, in it, but I just think that the writers could have taken a little bit more time and actually worked out Iden's motivations. In fact, what's really funny is I agree with Angry Joe. Her partner, Miko, actually has a little bit more of a believable story when it comes to his turning point than Iden Versio does. So that's kind of my viewpoint of the story, is that I think that a lot of the stuff is great on paper, but its execution was horribly flawed at best and idiotic at worst. So I did take points off for that. Let's move on to the visuals. Visually, this game is beautiful. I don't have very many problems with how it looks. I didn't really have any visual glitches, which was surprising to me when I played through it. It does look like you're in the Star Wars universe, so I didn't necessarily fault visuals for this particular one. But it is what you would expect from an EA game. It has a lot of polish, so I don't know if I'd necessarily call this a high point. We know that they can pull off really snazzy graphics. Moving on into the gameplay, because there's really not a whole lot else I can do. I gave it full marks on visuals. Moving on into the gameplay, it also plays pretty solid. I would say that there hasn't been a whole lot of changes in the ground combat since Battlefront 2015 edition. But the space combat, which was a big problem for me in 2015 edition, has received a major overhaul. Part of that being that we already have a brand new studio specifically working on the space combat. And I will admit that it plays a lot better. It plays a lot more fast-paced. I actually think that this is probably the closest to the closest thing to an awesome flight simulator we've gotten since probably Rogue Squadron 2 on GameCube. I really do like that one, or the original Rogue Squadron, and I'm a fan of the X-Wing and TIE Fighter series, so I do think that the space combat was significantly improved. The ground combat is pretty much what I expected from it in the 2015 edition. It's run and gun, it's a shooter, and from what I can tell, I haven't played too much of the multiplayer with actual people, more like in an arcade setting. And it looks like it plays out fairly well, but I can't really necessarily... There were a couple of times where I had some issues while playing through the story campaign as well as playing through the arcade mode, but not like game-breaking glitches. The heroes are kind of questionable as far as I'm concerned, but they are pretty much what people have said were in 2015, aside from the brand new ones, which I played with a little bit with Maul, but that was about it, I think. Yeah, I think I was able to play with a little bit with Maul, but most of the time I stuck with the story mode hero characters, and aside from the lightsaber wielders, the lightsaber wielders I liked, but the gun characters like Leia, Han, and Lando really drove me nuts. So I did take off a little bit in regards to gameplay, but not a whole lot, because it is a lot more polished than I expected. And here we go into audio, which also goes into kind of the performance angle. Again, I didn't really have too many people that I thought did a bad performance. But on the other hand, I also don't think there was a lot of people that did a breakout or a standalone performance either. A lot of the stuff, especially a lot of the dialogue in the story mode, was pretty bland at best. And in some cases, just, I would have gone in for that other read at worse. I think you could have gotten a lot of better lines out of the character or the actor that played Luke. Iden Versio had a couple of moments where I thought, yeah, you could have done a reread on that, and I think you would have gotten a better attempt at it. So that's really my problem. I did take points off for it because I'm not really grading the music. A lot of the music was like John Williams-esque, so I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but as far as the voice cast, there really just wasn't a breakout performance, in my opinion. It was all pretty dang bland, and that was the most disappointing part of that for me, is like, this is Star Wars. Go all out. That way you can get a return performance. We can get more stuff out of you. Maybe we would have cared a little bit more about Iden Versio if we got a little bit more out of her. Instead, we got kind of a bland performance, very much a safe performance, and yeah, it just didn't really stand out to me. Finally, let's go on into replay value and presentation. Now, obviously, I have no problem saying that there is replay value in this game. It is a multiplayer game, so there's plenty of value. This is probably where I should talk about the controversial topic, the loot boxes. As of right now, the loot boxes are not in place. I have a feeling that by the beginning of next year, they will be back in place. Even though this game's performance has not done exceptionally well, and EA has kind of given the hint that maybe they're considering dropping a lot of the loot boxes or a lot of the Crystal Collection, but I'm not necessarily going to hold EA at their words. They've played false penitent before, so I'm not necessarily going to grade on that, and really that's kind of my viewpoint on the whole loot box situation. If you want that, or you could check out my podcast, Geek News Reviews and Opinions, to hear in depth what I thought about that situation. But is there replay value to this game? Yeah. It's a multiplayer game, so there's plenty of stuff to be able to do, especially to be able to unlock heroes and other things like that. But, or actually, wow, quick correction. I completely got that wrong. No, I played as Kylo, and it was in the story mode. I didn't play as Maul, my bad, because Maul's behind the store. But I was able to play as Kylo, wasn't really all that impressed. Like I said, the lightsaber wielders are kind of cool, but the gun wielders are my real problem. But yeah, back to replay value. I mean, if you want to do the hero brawl, I like the fact that they did a specific hero brawl kind of map or mode. I do like the fact that they have specific starship battle mode. I'd probably do that over the ground combat, but again, it's not something that I'm highly motivated to go and do, but I can see that there's motivation for people. So yeah, there's a replay value. I can at least say that. Presentation, does it all come together? Oh, and I will also say this for the replay value in is the story worth replaying? No, not really. Once you've seen it, you're not like wanting to go back into it. I have no problem saying that. And does it all come together? In a mixed package. I really don't think it comes together in the best possible way that a AAA studio like EA and DICE can make work. I know that they can pull off the polish, guys. I'm not saying, like, you can get a really polished, well, turd out of DICE and EA. I've already proven that. We had Mirror's Edge. But at the same time, the rest has to come together too, and that's where this fails. It looks pretty, but its voice performances could use a little bit more work. Its story mode needed a lot more to it, and probably a lot more thought needed to go into that prospect. And I'm pretty sure that even though I didn't experience any glitches, both visual and gameplay, I have already heard of a few people who have. So it's definitely there. It's definitely something that they need to look into. And that's why I have no problem giving Star Wars Battlefront 2 and I can't even believe I'm doing this, a 7 out of 10. It's a solid C performance. There's so much more that was expected out of it, and I think for the diehard Star Wars fans that are going to play this, and for the shooter fans, you've got plenty there. But as for me, and for people who are just interested in the story mode, this doesn't deliver as much as it probably should. Now, currently, you can get Star Wars Battlefront 2 EA on the Steam store, at GameStop, and I believe it's still at either the $49.99. Well, let me double check that. Okay, yeah, I'm glad I checked that out, because it is $59.99 on basically any outlet that you try to get it. It's for Xbox One, PC, and PlayStation 4. I've heard rumblings of maybe considering Switch. I don't even think so, because EA's already kind of stated that they really don't want to do anything with the Switch. Is it worth the $59.99? No, not to me. I would actually dare say what I've been saying since the microtransactions conflict has begun is wait until January to go get it. If you must have it, then go and get it, but understand that's what you're buying into. You are endorsing EA doing things like this loot box crap. But at the same time, if you can wait, I would say wait until January, and if you can, don't get it at $60. I wouldn't even say get it at $80. I know that there was a lot of bonuses handed out into that $80 digital deluxe edition. I don't even think it's worth the $80 personally. I would actually dare say wait until, because I have a feeling if it's doing that bad, we're going to get a price reduction in either January or February. Wait until that reduction happens, because even so much as $10 to $15 less on this thing might make it worth it a little bit more to you as the player, so that you can get it just for that much cheaper. And that's going to go ahead and do it for me. So it's a 7 out of 10. And yeah, I would highly recommend that if you absolutely can't wait, go ahead and go get it. But if you can, wait until it's like $10 or $15 cheaper. It might be a little bit more worth it then. And that's going to go ahead and do it for this review. So thank you guys so much for watching. And of course, I will be back for the next review.